March 15, 1943, 28,000 feet above western Germany. The sky is clean, painfully blue, the kind of cold that seeps through gloves and settles in the bones. Vapor trails stretch like scars across the heavens. Somewhere below, bombers grind east, engines droning, unaware of what's about to happen. A pair of Luftwaffe FW-190 slice through the thin air, their pilots relaxed, confident. They've done this before. American bombers are predictable, their escorts less so. But today what they see makes one of them smirk. Below and ahead, lumbering shapes climb slowly. Big, thick-winged, almost clumsy. Donnerwitter, what are those? One pilot mutters over the radio. They don't look like Spitfires. They don't look like Mustangs. They look wrong. Too fat, too heavy. A flying anvil. The Germans had a nickname for it already. Der Jug. The Juggernaut, not said with fear, but with mockery. The P-47 Thunderbolt. To Luftwaffe eyes trained on sleek Messerschmitt Bf-109s and knife-edged Focke-Wulfs, the Thunderbolt looks like a mistake that somehow made it into combat. Massive radial engine, barrel-shaped fuselage, wings thick enough to land a truck on. German pilots had been taught speed was life, agility was survival, and this thing looked like it had neither. They laugh, they die. You can almost feel the confidence in the cockpit of Oberleutnant Karl-Heinz Weiss, a veteran of the Eastern Front now transferred west. He rolls his FW-190 onto its back, lines up the American escort, and pushes the nose down. Gravity does the rest. The Thunderbolts don't react immediately. They don't scatter. They don't break. They keep climbing. To Weiss, it looks like hesitation, like inexperience, like prey frozen in the moment before the kill. He squeezes the trigger. 20 cannon shells streak past the first Thunderbolt, exploding in black puffs. The American pilot jerks left sluggishly. Weiss grins, too slow, but then something unexpected happens. The Thunderbolt doesn't fall away. It doesn't spiral down trailing smoke. It absorbs the hits, chunks of aluminum tear free. A cylinder is punctured. Smoke belches from the cowling. Any other fighter would be finished. The P-47 keeps flying. Inside the cockpit of Lieutenant Frank Klibb, hands tighten on the stick. The Thunderbolt shudders, rattles like a freight train on broken tracks. Warning lights flicker, oil pressure dips, but the engine keeps roaring. This is what the Thunderbolt was built for. Back in the States, engineers at Republic Aviation had ignored elegance. They built for violence, for altitude, for punishment. The massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, pumping out over 2,000 horsepower, was wrapped in armor and steel. Fuel tanks were self-sealing. Control cables were redundant. The plane could be shot to pieces and still bring its pilot home. Klibb doesn't panic. He pushes the throttle forward. The Thunderbolt doesn't turn sharply. It doesn't dance. It dives. The P-47's greatest secret wasn't how it turned, it was how it fell. Weiss sees it too late. The Thunderbolt rolls inverted and drops like a stone, nose down, picking up speed faster than physics should allow. The bulky fighter suddenly becomes something else entirely, a screaming mass of steel and fire. Klibb levels out beneath the German fighter and pulls up hard. The distance collapses in seconds. Now the Germans can see it clearly. The guns. 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns, 4 in each wing, each capable of firing 800 rounds per minute. Together, they form something no Luftwaffe pilot has truly faced before. Not precision fire, not single cannon bursts, but a wall of lead. Klibb squeezes the trigger. The Thunderbolt shudders as if trying to tear itself apart. The sound is deafening, an unbroken roar like canvas ripping across the sky. Tracer rounds pour forward in converging streams, bright red lines stitching the air. Weiss pulls back instinctively, but it's already too late. The rounds hit the FW-190 like a hammer. Wing root, engine cowling, canopy. Metal peels away. The aircraft disintegrates in flashes and smoke. There is no dogfight. There is no second pass. The German fighter simply ceases to exist. The laughter on the Luftwaffe radio net vanishes. Silence replaces it. And in that silence, a realization begins to form, slowly, painfully. These American fighters were not clumsy. They were not slow. They were something far more dangerous. And this was only the beginning. The sky over Europe does not forgive mistakes. By the summer of 1943, the Luftwaffe is bleeding pilots faster than it can replace them. Veterans like Weiss are gone. The replacements are younger, less experienced, trained on shrinking fuel allocations and rushed syllabi. And now every briefing includes a new warning. Avoid the Thunderbolt in a dive. Do not engage head-on. Brake early. The tone has changed. Where laughter once echoed in mess halls, there is now tension. Cigarettes burn faster. Conversations trail off when someone mentions the P-47. At 25,000 feet above Schweinfurt, a formation of B-17 flying fortresses drones onward, silver skins glinting in the sun. Below them, like watchdogs, fly the Thunderbolts of the 56th Fighter Group, Zemke's Wolfpack. The Germans see the bombers first. They always do. Then they see the escorts, big, heavy, familiar, but no longer laughable. Hauptmann Ernst Keller, flying a Bf-109G, tightens his jaw. He remembers the reports, the shredded aircraft, the pilots who never came back. He doesn't want to fight the jug, but orders are orders. He pushes forward anyway. The first engagement is chaos. The Luftwaffe dives through the escort screen, firing upward at the bombers. Tracers arc. Engines scream. Someone is shouting on the radio, too fast, too loud. Then the Thunderbolts react. They don't turn tightly like Spitfires. They don't weave like Mustangs. They do something far worse. They attack in pairs. One Thunderbolt climbs slightly, drawing attention. The German pilot commits, instinctively trying to outturn the American. That's when the second P-47 drops in from above and behind, nose low, guns blazing. 8.50s tear through the sky again. A Messerschmitt's tail disappears in a blink. Another loses an engine and tumbles away, trailing fire. Keller tries to dive, but the Thunderbolt follows. The jug is heavier. That should make it slower. Instead, it accelerates. The altimeter spins. Wind screams against the canopy. Keller feels his aircraft shaking as he pushes past its safe limits. The Thunderbolt stays with him, growing larger in his mirrors, too close. He yanks the stick, trying to pull out. The American fires. The rounds don't just hit, they punch. Control surfaces vanish. The cockpit fills with smoke and noise and the smell of burning oil. Keller bails out at barely 3,000 feet, parachute snapping open just in time. As he drifts downward, he watches his aircraft explode against the countryside. From the ground, farmers look up and see something new. American fighters not merely escorting bombers, but dominating the sky. This is when the realization sets in across the Luftwaffe. The P-47 is not a duelist. It is an executioner. Its pilots are trained to fight vertically, to use altitude as currency, to trade height for speed and speed for survival. They don't need elegance. They don't need finesse. They need gravity and firepower. By late 1943, Thunderbolts are no longer just escorts. They are hunters. They drop below the bomber streams and rake airfields, locomotives, fuel trucks. The same 8 guns that shred fighters now chew through trains and convoys, turning Germany's roads into killing zones. Flak bursts fill the air. Shrapnel hammers the Thunderbolts. Wings are punctured. Engines bleed oil. The P-47s keep coming. Pilots return with holes you can crawl through, with cylinders shot out, with control surfaces barely responding. And still, they land. German intelligence officers study wreckage and gun camera footage. They note the thickness of the wings, the armor behind the pilot's seat, the redundant systems. Someone writes a line that circulates quietly through headquarters. The Thunderbolt does not need to win the fight. It only needs to survive it. And survival, multiplied by numbers, is how wars are won. But the Luftwaffe hasn't yet seen the Thunderbolt at its most terrifying. That moment is coming, and it will not be in the clouds, but screaming in low over the fields, roads, and railways of a collapsing Reich. March 1944. Low over occupied France. The war has shifted downward. The Thunderbolt no longer lives only at altitude. It hunts where the Luftwaffe fears to follow, below the flak, above the trees, skimming hedgerows and roads at treetop height. You can almost feel the ground rushing up through the cockpit. Captain Robert S. Johnson, flying with the 56th Fighter Group, lines up a German supply column crawling along a narrow road. Trucks packed bumper to bumper. Fuel, ammunition, food for an army already running short of everything. Johnson doesn't hesitate. He pushes the nose down. The Thunderbolt screams as it accelerates, the airframe shuddering, the massive radial engine howling like a wounded animal. At 500 miles per hour, the world becomes a blur. Then Johnson fires. The 8.50s erupt. The road explodes. Trucks disintegrate in sprays of fire and metal. Fuel ignites. Ammunition cooks off in violent flashes. German soldiers scatter for the ditches, some firing wildly upward, others frozen in terror as the jug tears through the column and vanishes just as quickly. Johnson pulls up hard black smoke filling his mirrors. Behind him, there is nothing left to supply. This is what the Thunderbolt has become. Not a fighter, not an escort, a flying sledgehammer. Across Europe, German troops learned to fear a new sound. Not the whistle of bombs, not the distant rumble of artillery, but the sudden, deafening roar of a single aircraft diving out of the sun. When they hear it, they run, because they know what follows. The Luftwaffe tries to respond. They scramble fighters, they set traps, they lure Thunderbolts low, hoping weight and speed will betray them. It never does. If engaged, the jug dives away faster than anything can follow. If damaged, it absorbs punishment that would shatter lighter fighters. Pilots bring their aircraft home with tails half gone, engines barely turning, wings shredded by flak. Mechanics shake their heads as the planes roll in. How is this thing still flying? By D-Day, the answer is clear. The Thunderbolt owns the battlefield. As Allied troops push inland from the beaches, P-47s fly overhead almost constantly. They destroy bridges before German armor can cross. They flatten artillery positions moments before they fire. They ambush convoys moving at night, guided by nothing but instinct and experience. German tank commanders write desperate reports. Movement during daylight is impossible. Air attack is continuous. Losses are unsustainable. And in the Luftwaffe, the laughter from 1943 feels like a lifetime ago. Survivors tell new pilots the truth now. Do not turn with it. Do not dive after it. Do not underestimate it, because the Thunderbolt does not fight the way you expect. It fights the way wars are actually won, by surviving longer, by hitting harder, by returning again and again. When the war ends, pilots walk through graveyards of wrecked aircraft. They count the Thunderbolts that never came back, and then they count the ones that did. The numbers tell the story. The P flew more combat missions than any other American fighter in Europe. It destroyed more ground targets than any of its peers, and its pilots survived at rates the Luftwaffe could only envy. The aircraft that was laughed at, the aircraft that looked too big, too heavy, too slow, until its 8.50s rained lead from the sky, and the laughter stopped forever.